But on February 27th, 2026, he straight up came out and basically highlighted how Sam Altman and OpenAI basically caved to the demands of the US government and ultimately decided to lend their technology.
After facing backlash, CEO Sam Altman says he's working with the government to, quote, make some additions.
Sam Altman faces a massive backlash after his shocking OpenAI spy deal sparked a brutal ChatGPT boycott online. Millions of furious users began canceling subscriptions overnight, fueling the viral Quit GPT movement, and accusing the company of turning AI into a surveillance weapon. Now, with public trust collapsing and critics circling, Sam Altman appears to be in absolute damage control mode.
And now we're getting to a point where the world is starting to kind of like boycott OpenAI due to some of the stances that they've recently taken.
Sam Altman probably expected headlines when OpenAI announced its new government partnership. Silicon Valley leaders love headlines. Usually they're glowing ones about innovation, disruption, or changing the world. What he probably didn't expect was the internet lighting up like someone had just leaked the plot of a dystopian sci-fi movie. Because the moment the announcement dropped that OpenAI's AI models would be deployed inside Pentagon classified networks, the reaction wasn't calm debate or polite concern. It was outrage. Loud, messy, sarcastic outrage.
Now, he tries to paint a more positive picture, trying to say that he also draws lines and that the technology, the way it'll be used by the US government, will not allow for the crossing of those lines. But the fact that Anthropic was shunned by the US government, despite having worked with them for so long, and then replaced by OpenAI, I think only highlights that there is definitely some kind of give that OpenAI had that Anthropic didn't.
Within hours, screenshots of people canceling subscriptions started spreading across social media. Threads popped up everywhere with users saying they were done with ChatGPT. The hashtag QuitGPT began trending, and suddenly people who had spent the last 2 years praising AI were talking about abandoning it entirely.
Saying Sam Altman is such an incredible backstabber, liar, and traitor. While your competitor is taking a heroic and principled stand, you swoop in to make your deal.
Some posts claimed more than 1.5 million users canceled or quit using the service in a short span. Now, whether that number was perfectly accurate almost didn't matter. In the internet age, perception moves faster than facts, and the perception forming online was brutal. OpenAI had just crossed a line. For years, ChatGPT had been marketed as a friendly tool, and then suddenly, the same technology was being integrated into Pentagon classified networks. That tonal shift was dramatic. And then another detail surfaced that made the situation even more explosive.
It should come as no surprise that the Pentagon and the military are interested in artificial intelligence. And not long ago, I talked about this developing situation where Anthropic was essentially threatened because they would not forego certain lines that they drew in the sand. Namely that Anthropic, one of OpenAI's main rivals, straight up told the US government who were interested in working with Anthropic and utilizing their technology.
Just weeks before this deal, another AI company, Anthropic, had reportedly been offered a similar opportunity. Same government interest, same potential partnership, but Anthropic refused.
Basically, Anthropic made the stance of like, our technology is incredibly powerful, and we do believe there is some responsibility to ensure that this technology is not used for nefarious purposes or for really destructive purposes.
They reportedly drew a hard ethical line and said their models would not be used for mass surveillance of civilians or autonomous weapons systems. Now, in theory, that should have been a proud moment for the company. A principled stand. The kind of thing Silicon Valley founders love to tweet about. Instead, the opposite happened. Reports began circulating that government agencies were suddenly instructed to stop using Anthropic's technology. In other words, the company that said no to the deal found itself quietly pushed out of the ecosystem.
if Sam Altman is insisting that the Department of War agrees with the principles of not using AI for mass domestic surveillance or using AI for essentially autonomous weapon systems. The only reason the US government would work with Sam Altman and OpenAI over Anthropic is that Sam Altman and OpenAI made some concessions when it comes to giving the Department of War and the US government just a lot more freedom than Anthropic would have when it comes to how AI technology is used.
And almost immediately afterward, OpenAI stepped in and secured the contract instead. The timing made people uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, because critics started asking a question that sounded simple but cut straight to the core of the controversy. Did Sam Altman just take a contract his competitor refused on ethical grounds?
People unfairly judge AI for how much energy it consumes because human beings consume a lot of energy in order to train them and raise them and whatnot, which was just so incredibly dehumanizing. But then we have developments surrounding how OpenAI is basically willing to make a deal with anyone that will give them the money to be able to support.
If that's what happened, the story looked very different. Suddenly, this wasn't just a government partnership. It looked like a moment where one company said, "We won't do this," and another company said, "Actually, we will." And that's when the outrage really took off. OpenAI tried to calm things down by explaining the safeguards included in the agreement. According to the company, the AI models could not be used for mass domestic surveillance, autonomous weapons, or high-stakes automated decision-making. That sounded reassuring at first.
In fact, community notes are already saying things like government officials have contradicted Sam's claim, saying OpenAI will allow the DOW or Department of War to use their models for all lawful purposes.
But critics quickly noticed a phrase inside the agreement that instantly became the centerpiece of the entire debate. The AI could be used for any lawful purpose. Now that sentence might sound harmless if you read it quickly. Governments operate under laws. Defense programs follow legal frameworks. Everything sounds neat and orderly. But people who follow surveillance history immediately spotted the problem.
Basically, if the US government comes up with a reason for why it's lawful to use OpenAI to engage in mass surveillance domestically or to use AI for autonomous weapons, then they're allowed to do that. It's basically like a loophole that OpenAI was willing to grant them that Anthropic wasn't.
Many of the most controversial surveillance programs in modern history were technically lawful at the time. Mass data collection programs, intelligence monitoring systems, large-scale behavioral analysis tools. Legality doesn't always equal ethical comfort. So when analysts saw that phrase, they started pointing out the obvious loophole. Lawful doesn't necessarily mean limited.
Basically, OpenAI agreed to follow laws that have allowed for mass surveillance in the past while insisting they protect its red lines that are incredibly weak. Basically, OpenAI is full of shit, and they may well turn over everything you ever typed into ChatGPT if the US government asks.
If powerful AI systems are embedded inside defense infrastructure, they could theoretically assist with analyzing enormous amounts of information, communications patterns, behavioral signals, intelligence data. And the reaction is severe. Some users said they felt betrayed. Others said they never trusted Silicon Valley in the first place. And the boycott started creating real ripple effects. Downloads of Anthropic's AI assistant surged almost overnight. People who had barely heard of the company before were suddenly installing its app, specifically because it had refused the Pentagon terms earlier. In one of the most ironic twists in tech history, the controversy intended to strengthen OpenAI's position might have inadvertently created its strongest competitor, because nothing boosts your reputation faster on the internet than refusing a government contract that someone else accepts. Behind the scenes, pressure inside OpenAI reportedly started building. Employees were asking questions. Critics were attacking the company from every direction. Investors were watching the backlash unfold in real time.
Well, according to the Wall Street Journal, which has a fantastic report out today, he's saying in an all-hands meeting at a town hall that it's been really painful.
Eventually, Sam Altman stepped forward and admitted something unusual for a tech CEO. He said the way the deal had been announced was opportunistic and sloppy. That's not exactly the polished corporate language investors usually expect from Silicon Valley. Translation: the announcement had detonated a public relations bomb. So the damage control tour began.
They were seen to be opportunistic, as he said himself, Friday night swooping in on that deal, saying they'd made a deal that would be comfortable for Anthropic as well. There's been no public sense that it is comfortable for Anthropic. The red lines do still seem to apply. And then, of course, OpenAI saying, responding to that and saying they are going to add extra safeguards on top of the ones they already said were enough.
Altman said the agreement had been renegotiated to explicitly ban domestic surveillance and access by the NSA. He tried to draw a clear line between helping national security and turning AI into a spying machine. Then came the quote that instantly spread across the internet. Altman said he would rather go to jail than violate civil liberties. It was the kind of dramatic statement that sounds heroic in an interview and immediately triggers skepticism online. Because critics kept circling back to the same question. If those protections were always the goal, why did the agreement need to be renegotiated after the backlash? That awkward timeline became one of the most uncomfortable parts of the entire controversy.
So this is a very kind of frenetic stage where we're seeing a lot of back and forward on the language, and it's not clear if OpenAI has done enough to satisfy its own internal critics, never mind the external critics.
But ethics debates weren't the only thing driving the criticism. There was another factor quietly shaping the conversation: money. Running large AI systems is unbelievably expensive. Massive data centers, specialized GPUs, cooling infrastructure, electricity consumption, research teams, global deployment. Every single part of the system costs staggering amounts of money. Some analysts estimate OpenAI could burn over $112 billion by 2030 if its current spending trajectory continues. And when you zoom out, this controversy exposed something much bigger than one deal or one company.
I think there is certainly a big open window there. Google, of course, is already a long-term partner of the Defense Department. Since the days of Project Maven, when it said it would not renew an AI contract, it has dropped some of its caveats about working with the Defense Department.
Artificial intelligence has quietly become the next strategic battlefield. Countries now view AI the same way earlier generations viewed nuclear technology or the internet itself. Whoever leads in AI gains enormous advantages in intelligence analysis, cyber defense, and military planning. So governments everywhere are racing to secure partnerships with the companies building these systems, which means tech companies are no longer just software developers. They're becoming geopolitical players. And when national security enters the conversation, ethics debates tend to get complicated very quickly.
And Meta has an open source model. It doesn't, as far as I'm aware, have direct contracts with the Department of War, but it does work with several subcontractors. It has a partnership with Anduril, and that is on some of its most forward-leaning tech in terms of visors for military operators to really bring data to the battlefield.
Some insiders now believe the industry is sliding into a full-blown AI arms race. The pressure to build more powerful systems is enormous, and governments are willing to spend vast amounts of money to stay ahead. The OpenAI deal might not be the beginning of that race, but it might be the moment the public finally noticed it. Because outside the tech bubble, frustration with AI was already growing. So when the Pentagon partnership surfaced, many people saw it as the final straw. And here's the twist nobody predicted. While OpenAI was dealing with boycotts and backlash, Anthropic suddenly became the internet's new favorite AI company. Its assistant shot up App Store rankings almost overnight. Millions of users started downloading it specifically because the company had refused the same government terms earlier.
Because what people type into ChatGPT, the queries that they ask it, informs a lot about that individual. The fact that they were doing targeted ads through ChatGPT, that was already like shady enough. But now to see it go up a whole other level where, government entities can use this technology for mass surveillance and to just kind of get to know you on a very intimate level.
In other words, what looked like a punishment for refusing the deal turned into the best marketing campaign the company never planned. Meanwhile, Sam Altman found himself in the middle of one of the most awkward PR storms the AI industry has seen so far, because the deeper question now hanging over the entire debate is much bigger than OpenAI. Artificial intelligence is becoming powerful enough to shape economies, national security systems, and the flow of information across the planet. So who should actually control it? Private tech companies? Governments? Some international oversight body that doesn't exist yet?
OpenAI swooped in and struck its own deal with the Pentagon. Now the details of that agreement appear to be changing.
Ironically, even Altman himself has previously suggested that building true artificial general intelligence might eventually require government-level oversight. But that idea raises an entirely different fear: surveillance power on a scale humanity has never seen before. Right now, nobody has a perfect answer, and that's why this controversy feels like a turning point. For the first time, millions of people are realizing just how powerful these systems are, and how little public control exists over them. The OpenAI backlash might fade. The boycott might slow down. The headlines will eventually move on to the next tech scandal. But the bigger issue isn't going anywhere. AI was supposed to empower humanity. Instead, the world is starting to watch something very different unfold: a race between corporations and governments to control the most powerful technology ever created. And as this story has already shown, when the stakes become that high, saying no can become very expensive.